Hello and welcome into another edition of Sitting Down with Scar. I'm the football voice of the Hoyas, Jeremy Huber, joined by head coach Rob Scarlatta, coming off a big win for his team against Davidson. The Hoyas really getting the job done in the Carolinas with that 51-14 win over the Wildcats. First off, coach, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Coach, let's get right into it. That performance against Davidson, from the outside, everyone going to see the score, but big plays, some good plays on defense. Kind of assess what you saw down in the Carolinas.
Yeah, it's anytime you can go on the road and get a win to start the season, it's great. It was great to see our kids come out, handle the road trip, and come out and start, playing well on the road. So it's something that we talked about throughout the week, getting off to a fast start, and we were able to. Savion Hart had a great first quarter and a great game overall, and really sparked us with some great play from the offensive line and the offense overall. So happy to get a win. A lot of things to correct, and good to be getting ready for week 2 here.
Coach, in doing a little bit of research for the game on Friday, I went back and looked, and I think in only 2 games last year, and remember, you guys were 5-6, you end up leading after the first quarter. I know there's been talk about, hey, we need to start faster. We need to start faster. Did you like the way your team got out of the gate quickly in that game?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really liked about this team is, and I've been saying it all year, is the leadership from our council and our captains and a very big senior class. So, we met before the road trip and talked about what the expectations and the goals were with the entire ball club, our guys that traveled and our guys that were here in DC. And it was good to see them take control of that, make a couple suggestions how to get us started fast on the road. And really, it was fun to see them come out and attack the first quarter and have success.
Rob, the story of the game offensively was Savion Hart, over 200 yards all-purpose, 3 touchdowns. I believe I looked this up. I think the first time Ahoya has scored 3 touchdowns in a quarter since the great Garen Hester did it back in the year 2000. Was it nice to see him explode that way after he kind of scratched the surface, showing what he could do last year?
Yeah, Savion's one of our hardest workers, in the weight room, on the field, and it's great to see him have success. What was even more fun for me was after the game, listening to him in an interview, and the first thing he talked about was the offensive line and the quarterbacks and the team overall. So, he is a team guy. He is a very special individual in a very special room with the running back. So, competition has been a big theme for us in the preseason and throughout the season, and I think you're seeing it in a lot of position groups, especially the running backs.
Let's stay in the backfield, Coach, and you got good performances from both of your quarterbacks. Danny Lauder makes the start. He threw the ball well. At one point, Danny got stepped on. As a fan, you weren't sure, hey, is Des Thomas seeing time because of the injury, just something they wanted to do? Des comes in. He does a good job. Had to make you feel good to see both signal callers show out well against Davidson.
Yeah, I always look at it when you're assessing an offense, what would be really tough to defend. I had to do that for a number of years, and both Danny and Des had good games. They're both very competitive and bring different things to our offense. So, both very dynamic, and that was something that we had talked about before the game, using both quarterbacks. I think they're both handling the situation extremely well, and the competition has been great for our ball club.
Rob, before we switch it over to the defense, obviously some folks may have only seen the highlights and the score at the end of the game, say, the Hoyas don't have much to work on. What are some things that your team had to clean up this week to be at their best against Wagner?
Yeah, I mean, the old adage is that you always get 100% better between week 1 and week 2. There are a number of things to get cleaned up. For us, just discipline with our eyes and how hard we're playing throughout the 4 quarters are 2 huge points of emphasis for us. So, it was by far not a perfect ball game for us. Really pleased with the result, and, something that we're working on building on each week.
Coach, mentioned the defense. They had a pretty good performance. Really, one thing that Kevin Doherty had said, your defensive coordinator, hey, we've got to not allow the big play. Had some medium-sized plays. Really, the only one big play was the tip ball touchdown pass. Kind of assess the performance the defense put out in game 1.
Yeah, each one of the coaches talks about a different, topic in preseason. Coach D is, is always the oblong spheroid. The ball is going to bounce certain ways in the game, and it's how you respond to it, not react. So, we had a tip pass, got tipped twice. Actually, if we had played it correctly on defense, it's probably an interception for our corner. So to see the kids respond to that and just come back out and keep playing was really encouraging. It was also encouraging to see a number of players, play for us on defense. I think we're upwards of 18, 19 guys that got on the field, and, they're trying to create some depth throughout each one of the positions.
Coach, let's speak on that. Obviously, you have some guys that are experienced who've been in the trenches and the battles before. You also have a bunch of new guys, new faces to your team. How do you assess how that newer group played in their first opportunity on defense?
Yeah, you always like to try and get the new guys in and cut their teeth on special teams. We had a number of our freshmen and some sophomores in their first game action. I thought they responded well. And again, I go back to the team, just the team leadership, being able to get those guys prepared to play in a game and feel comfortable, when they have success and when they make mistakes, not to worry about it and go to the next play.
Rob, last one. This team, I think, has the ability to create big plays, to create turnovers, game-changing plays. You had 4 sacks, you had an interception. How did you like your team's big play prowess in game 1 on defense?
Yeah, definitely some things to build on. For us, being able to put pressure on the quarterback and do a great job in the back end have been 2 hallmarks Coach Doherty's defenses. So, for us, we're always looking to build on it, right? So we'll look at what we did well, what we did poorly, and just keep getting better 1% each day. And these incremental improvements for us, hopefully we can carry week to week.
Well, Rob, a guy who was a standout in the game, are sitting down with Sgar Spotlight this week. It's Brian Allen, the freshman defensive back. Brian, thank you for taking some time today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start off here. First off, congratulations on winning Patriot League Freshman of the Week. Coming into this campaign, what was your attitude when it came to, was it, hey, man, I got a chance to be a contributor on this team if I do what I'm supposed to do?
Yes, sir. I'm a big opportunist. So whether it be on defense or special teams, I'm going to take the opportunities and the plays that I get and try give 100% effort. And so make those plays, and that's the result. The results will come.
That's what you did. Definitely made your mark on the game. Rob, what did you guys see in Brian in the recruiting process and maybe in the first few weeks of camp to know that he was worth going after and giving a chance to get out there and make plays?
Yeah, really versatile athlete. For us, can play all 3 spots in the back end for us. And, really appreciative. It made me look good as the kickoff coach. Had a bunch of tackles on kickoff for me, and physical player. And the number one thing that we saw from Brian in recruiting was just his competitive nature. He's definitely somebody that's going to come into the room and elevate the culture and make sure that, he's competing every day to get on the field. And you've seen that by the playing time that he's earned here as a freshman.
Brian, back over to you. You're playing for a few good ones in defensive coordinator Kevin Doherty, also your position coach and Coach Kyle Perkey. Kind of tell me about what you like most about playing for those guys.
They're really knowledgeable about football. I could learn a lot from them. Not even really like the playbook, but really like offensive formations, stuff like that. They really teach me a lot of things, and they're always open to help. Even not just me, the other freshmen too that are trying to learn and strive every day to learn this playbook. So they're really helpful when it comes to learning, definitely.
Brian, it feels like it's a young and hungry group back in that secondary, but one hallmark of those defensive backfields over the last few years feels like it's been a collaborative effort where guys are willing to coach each other up, give each other tips. Are there a couple guys maybe in the upperclassmen that you've tried to latch on to, maybe not only in your football life on the hilltop, but also maybe in how things are done at Georgetown?
Yes, sir, definitely. I would definitely say Braylon Wise and Damon Narcisse. Those 2 guys, I've leaned on them a lot during going through fall camp, just helping me with the playbook, even with classes I took for CSP. So those guys helped me a lot, and they're really a big role in the plays I've made in the past game.
Well, Brian, one last one for you. We talked about this before we went on the air. Your high school, you guys were almost replicas of Raider jerseys. So I'm going to assume that you're a little bit of a uniform connoisseur. Let's go here. We know Coach Scarlotta, he loves the blue and gray until the day he dies. So obviously the color scheme is great on the Hilltop. What do you think about your current uniforms? What kind of rating do you give them?
We didn't get a lot of chance to rock the all white at my high school, so I loved rocking the all white. And I think we look really clean out there, and we got to it. And then we play good, we look good.
Well, this week you'll get to show a little more blue and gray off on a grander scale, and hopefully you can keep showing off your talent. Brian, thank you again for joining us on Sitting Down with Sgar.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
What a performance by him. And let's wrap it up with this, Coach. Obviously, Wagner coming into town. We've kind of referred to them a bit. Let's get to this point before we get to the actual game. You and I have a connection in this game. The Seahawks were the first team that you played against as a head coach. That was your debut game. That was also my debut game as the play-by-play announcer for Georgetown football. So it's both debuts for us. Do you remember anything from that Wagner matchup so long ago now?
Yeah, I do, but I won't bore everybody with the game and what happened. I'm in my office, and we have our seal, our 4 for 40 seats we've been for others, and the one thing I do remember is, the people make our place. In my office, I have a replica that's the entire wall. My one of my best friends from school, Carlo Tamboro, got together with all my former teammates, and had that made for me, and it's been in my office every day. It's got all their names on the back and a Lombardi quote that's special to all of us. So, it's a little reminiscent to, have Wagner come back. I'm very familiar with Coach Masella, does an unbelievable job there, faced him when they were at Fordham. So, be a big challenge for us, coming off the win at Davidson. That one's over, and really just working on trying to be 1-0 this week and keep getting better as a team.
Well, Rob, let's jump into the everything with the Seahawks. One of your teammates, I think, wanting to chat with you right there.
Zoom call coming in hot.
Coach, let's go ahead and talk about Wagner, the opponent, in the sense of you guys play a Davidson team that's kind of rebuilding with a new coach. They play a Kansas team that I think maybe some folks underrated how good they might be in the Big 12 and the FBS. What can you kind of glean from watching that game film against a team that probably was a little bit overmatched when their opponent last week?
Yeah, I mean, Kansas is one of the best teams in the nation. You're sitting here watching the film, and it's different. What you see is a very competitive football team with a lot of talent. Wagner didn't back down. They came out and played them tough, got a bunch of stops on defense, and they have a talented football team. So, everything is relative. You kind of take it with a grain of salt and have to put it in your own perspective. So, I know that they'll come down here. They're a good football team. They're going to play hard. They have a lot of talent. So, again, going back, we're going to play a lot of good football teams this year. How good we can become from week to week is going to be key for us. So, like I said, I really respect their staff. I know those guys very well, and, we're doing our best to prepare to put our best out there this Saturday.
Rob, not for you to give away any state secrets, but looking at the Wagner depth chart, they've got some talent at quarterback, but maybe a little inexperience at the starting level. Same with the wide receivers, but that running back group, there's a lot of experienced, tough runners there. Do you expect the Seahawks to maybe try and test the toughness of your defensive line in that run game?
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the season, you're always trying to figure out what the identity of your football team is. And that's part and parcel with having, a third of the team being new, whether it's us having freshmen and transfers come in or, Wagner's roster being a little bit different from year to year. So early season games, I think you're still feeling out what you're good at, what you can accomplish. And, I wouldn't be surprised with anything. The Kansas game for them to open is a tough opener. And, they had a lot of great experience playing against one of the top programs in the country. So, I think it'll be a great matchup.
Well, that'll wrap it up for another edition of Sitting Down with Scar. Remember, Georgetown hosts Wagner on Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff on the Hilltop. You can see it in person if you're in the DMV or watch online at ESPN+. Thank you, Coach Scarlotta, for joining us this week.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeremy.
Also, thank you to reigning Patriot League Rookie of the Week defensive back Brian Allen and producer Eliza Kravitz. That's all for this edition of Sitting Down with Scar. I'm Jeremy Huber and Hoya Saxa.